Welcome back to Stoic Wisdom TV. Have you ever stopped to wonder if your own habits, thoughts, or actions are holding you back? Worse yet, have you unknowingly surrounded yourself with people who drag you down? According to Stoic philosophy, wisdom is not just about intelligence or knowledge, it's about mastering oneself. And Levi Eng, in accordance with reason, and Vir 2. The opposite of wisdom is not ignorance, but foolishness, a mindset, and Bahavai or that lead to failure, frustration, and wasted potential. The ancient Stoics, including Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, believed that foolishness is one of the greatest dangers in life. It's not about being uneducated, rather, it's about being unwilling to grow, learn, and adapt. Foolish people resist change, act impulsively, and blame others for their misfortunes. Their actions create unnecessary suffering, not only for themselves, but also for those around them. In this article, we will explore 6 key signs of foolishness as outlined by Stoic wisdom. By recognizing these traits within yourself and others, you can take steps towards self-improvement, greater resilience, and a life guided by wisdom rather than folly. Let's dive in. 1. They refuse to listen or learn. One of the most defining characteristics of a foolish person is their unwillingness to listen or learn. They are not just resistant to new information, they actively reject it. This refusal is often rooted in pride and arrogance, as they believe they already know everything they need to know. To them, accepting new knowledge or changing their perspective would mean admitting they were wrong, which is something their ego simply cannot tolerate. A foolish person may hear words, but they do not truly listen. When engaged in conversation, instead of considering different viewpoints or absorbing new ideas, they are merely waiting for their turn to speak. They dismiss differing opinions without careful thought, convinced that their way of thinking is the only correct one. This rigid mindset prevents growth and keeps them trapped in a cycle of ignorance. The Stoics, on the other hand, valued humility and continuous self-improvement. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Roman emperors and a devoted Stoic, once wrote, "If anyone can prove me wrong and show me a mistake in my thinking, I will gladly change, for I seek the truth, which has never harmed anyone." This perspective highlights the key difference between wisdom and foolishness. A wise person welcomes correction because they see it as an opportunity to improve, whereas a fool rejects it out of fear of looking weak. Epictetus, another great Stoic philosopher, also warned against the dangers of believing you already have all the answers. He famously said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." This means that as long as someone believes they have nothing left to learn, they will remain stagnant, missing out on personal and intellectual growth. In practical terms, refusing to learn can have severe consequences. In a professional setting, for example, an employee who resists feedback or refuses to adapt to new methods will eventually become obsolete. In personal relationships, someone who never listens to advice or refuses to see another person's point of view can push people away, leading to isolation. Growth requires the humility to admit one's limitations and the willingness to seek out new knowledge. This does not mean that every opinion or piece of advice should be accepted without question. The Stoics believed in using reason to evaluate information carefully. However, the key is to remain open to learning and improvement. A foolish person is closed-minded, whereas a wise person embraces the opportunity to evolve. By recognizing this trait in yourself or others, you can take steps to break free from the trap of intellectual stubbornness. The next time you find yourself dismissing an idea too quickly, ask yourself, am I rejecting this because it is truly wrong or because it challenges my beliefs? True wisdom begins with self-awareness, and the willingness to listen is the first step toward real knowledge. 2. They are easily offended. A clear sign of a foolish person is their inability to handle criticism. Instead of viewing it as a tool for growth, they react with outrage, hostility, or deep resentment. Any form of feedback, no matter how constructive, is seen as a personal attack rather than an opportunity for self-improvement. This defensive attitude prevents them from learning and evolving, keeping them stuck in the same patterns of behavior. The Stoic philosopher Seneca believed that true greatness lies in the ability to endure insults without resentment. He stated, "A man's greatness lies in his ability to endure insults without losing his temper. This means that emotionally strong and wise individuals understand that criticism is inevitable, and they do not allow it to disturb their inner peace. Instead of reacting impulsively, they take a step back, evaluate the feedback, and use it to better themselves. A foolish person, on the other hand, allows their emotions to take control. When criticized, they become angry, defensive, or even aggressive. They may lash out at the person offering the critique, attack their character, or completely shut down the conversation. This reaction is often driven by insecurity. They fear that the criticism might be true, but their ego refuses to acknowledge it. This inability to accept criticism affects all aspects of life. In the workplace, an employee who cannot handle constructive feedback will struggle to improve their skills and advance in their career. In relationships, someone who takes every disagreement personally will create unnecessary conflict, making communication difficult and straining their connections with others. Even in personal development, those who reject criticism will fail to see their own flaws and continue making the same mistakes. Wise individuals take a completely different approach. They understand that no one is perfect and that feedback is essential for growth. They do not take criticism personally. Instead, they analyze it objectively. They ask themselves, is there truth in this criticism? Can I learn something from it? Even if the feedback is delivered harshly or unfairly, a wise person will extract any useful insights rather than reacting emotionally. Marcus Aurelius, another great Stoic thinker, often reminded himself not to be disturbed by the opinions of others. He believed that allowing yourself to be offended gives control of your emotions to someone else. When you remain calm in the face of criticism, you demonstrate true inner strength. The ability to accept and process criticism is a sign of maturity and wisdom. Instead of becoming defensive, the best response is to listen, reflect, and decide whether the criticism holds value. Not all criticism is valid, but the wise person knows how to separate what is useful from what is not. By recognizing this tendency in yourself or others, you can take steps to develop emotional resilience. The next time someone offers criticism, pause before reacting. Ask yourself, is my pride getting in the way? Can I use this feedback to grow? Learning to handle criticism with grace is one of the most powerful skills a person can develop, leading to stronger relationships, greater self-awareness, and a path toward true wisdom. 3. They chase pleasure above all else. One of the most dangerous traits of a foolish person is their obsession with pleasure. Instead of focusing on long-term fulfillment, they prioritize immediate gratification, constantly seeking the next high, whether through food, material possessions, entertainment, or unhealthy relationships. While pleasure itself is not inherently bad, chasing it without restraint leads to a life of dissatisfaction, instability, and ultimately, suffering. The Stoic philosopher Seneca warned against this kind of reckless indulgence, stating, "The fool's life is empty of gratitude and full of fears. Its course lies wholly toward the future." What he meant was that those who live only for pleasure never feel truly satisfied. They are always looking ahead to the next thrill, never appreciating what they already have. This creates a cycle of endless craving. Once one desire is fulfilled, another quickly takes its place. Instead of finding peace, they experience constant restlessness. This pursuit of short-term pleasure manifests in many ways. Some people overeat, indulging in food for comfort rather than nourishment. Others overspend, buying unnecessary luxuries to fill an emotional void. Many chase toxic relationships, confusing passion and excitement for genuine connection. Some fall into harmful habits like excessive drinking, gambling, or compulsive social media use. In all cases, the common theme is a lack of self-control and an inability to delay gratification for something more meaningful. Foolish people fail to understand that true happiness does not come from indulging every desire. It comes from discipline, purpose, and living in alignment with one's values. The Stoics believed that self-mastery is the key to a fulfilling life. Instead of being controlled by impulses, a wise person makes conscious choices based on what will bring lasting fulfillment, rather than fleeting pleasure. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic thinkers, encouraged people to rise above their base desires. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This means that true contentment comes from within, not from external pleasures. A person who chases pleasure endlessly is actually enslaved by their desires, while someone who practices self-control is truly free. The ability to resist temptations and focus on long-term goals leads to a life of deeper meaning. This does not mean that one must reject all enjoyment either. It means understanding the difference between healthy pleasures that enrich life and destructive indulgences that bring momentary joy but long-term regret. Recognizing this trait in yourself or others is an important step towards self-improvement. The next time you feel the urge to indulge in an unhealthy pleasure, ask yourself, is this bringing me closer to the life I want, or is it just a temporary escape? True fulfillment comes from discipline, purpose, and the pursuit of wisdom, not from mindlessly chasing pleasure. For they blame others for their problems. A defining characteristic of a foolish person is their refusal to take responsibility for their actions. When things go wrong, they immediately look for someone or something to blame rather than examining their own choices. Instead of acknowledging their role in a situation, they shift responsibility onto others, whether it's their family, society, bad luck, or even fate. This mindset keeps them stuck in a cycle of failure and resentment, preventing them from making meaningful progress in life. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus famously said, "It is not events that disturb us, but our perception of them." This means that external circumstances do not have the power to control our emotions or actions, only our reaction to them does. Wise individuals understand that while they cannot control everything that happens to them, they can always control how they respond. On the other hand, fools refuse to accept this truth. They prefer to see themselves as victims, which allows them to avoid the discomfort of self-reflection and change. This tendency to blame others is often driven by fear and insecurity. Admitting fault requires humility and self-awareness, qualities that foolish people lack. Taking responsibility means acknowledging mistakes, learning from them, and making the effort to improve. But for those who refuse to grow, it is easier to point fingers and make excuses than to face the truth. This behavior is destructive in many areas of life. In the workplace, an employee who constantly blames co-workers, their boss, or company policies for their failures will never develop the skills needed to succeed. In relationships, someone who refuses to accept their faults will create tension and conflict, pushing others away. In personal development, those who believe external forces are always against them will never take the necessary steps to improve their situation. Foolish people often believe that life is unfair, and while challenges and injustices certainly exist, wise individuals do not allow them to dictate their future. They recognize that complaining and blaming others accomplish nothing. Instead, they take ownership of their actions, learn from their experiences, and focus on what they can control. Marcus Aurelius, another great Stoic thinker, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In other words, strength comes from taking control of one's thoughts, emotions, and reactions rather than wasting energy blaming external factors. If you recognize this trait in yourself or others, it is important to break the cycle. The next time you find yourself blaming someone else for a problem, ask, what role did I play in this situation? What can I learn from it? How can I change my actions moving forward? True growth begins when you take full responsibility for your life. While it may be uncomfortable at first, this shift in mindset leads to greater freedom, resilience, and success. Blaming others keeps you stuck. Owning your actions sets you free. 5. They talk more than they think. One of the most common signs of foolishness is an uncontrollable urge to speak without thinking. Foolish people love the sound of their own voice and feel the need to dominate conversations, often talking endlessly without adding real value. Instead of carefully considering their words, they blurt out opinions impulsively, often interrupting others in the process. Their focus is not on understanding or learning, but on making themselves heard. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius warned against this behavior, stating, "Better to trip with the feet than with the tongue." This means that speaking carelessly can be far more damaging than making a physical mistake. Words have power. They can build relationships, inspire change, or cause irreversible harm. A wise person understands this and chooses their words carefully, ensuring that what they say is meaningful, thoughtful, and necessary. Foolish people, however, lack this restraint. They speak to impress, to seek validation, or to fill silence without considering whether their words are helpful. They often dominate discussions, disregarding the perspectives of others. This habit not only makes them unpleasant to be around, but also prevents them from learning. After all, if someone is always talking, they leave no room for listening. In contrast, wise individuals value silence as much as speech. They listen actively, absorb information, and speak only when they have something valuable to say. By practicing this discipline, they gain deeper understanding and earn the respect of those around them. If you catch yourself speaking more than you listen, ask, am I talking to share wisdom, or just to hear myself speak? True intelligence is found in measured, thoughtful words. 6. They fear change. A foolish person fears change and clings to what is familiar, even when it is harmful. Instead of embracing growth and new opportunities, they resist anything that disrupts their comfort zone. This fear of the unknown keeps them stuck in unhealthy situations, whether it's a toxic relationship, an unfulfilling job, or destructive habits. They would rather endure a mediocre existence than face the discomfort of transformation. The Stoics believe that life is always in motion and that change is inevitable. Epictetus compared life to a game where we do not control the pieces we are given, but we do control how we play them. Wise individuals understand this and adapt accordingly, seeing challenges as opportunities for growth. Foolish people, however, remain paralyzed by fear, unwilling to step into the unknown. This fear of change often comes from insecurity and a lack of confidence. It is easier to stay in familiar patterns, even if they bring suffering, than to take risks and face uncertainty. However, avoiding change leads to stagnation. Without new experiences and challenges, there is no progress in the repetition of the same mistakes. In contrast, those who embrace change develop resilience and wisdom. They recognize that discomfort is a necessary part of growth. Instead of fearing the unknown, they see it as a chance to evolve and improve. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight." Accepting change is not just about survival, it is the key to a fulfilling life. If you find yourself resisting change, ask, am I holding onto this because it is good for me, or simply because it is familiar? True growth begins when you let go of fear and embrace life's constant evolution. Identifying these traits in yourself or others is not about casting judgment, it is about cultivating awareness. Awareness is the foundation of personal growth, and without it, we remain trapped in self-destructive patterns. Recognizing foolish tendencies does not mean looking down on others or being overly critical of oneself. Instead, it is an opportunity to reflect, adjust, and improve. The goal is not perfection, but progress toward wisdom, self-mastery, and a more meaningful life. The Stoics believe that true power comes not from controlling external circumstances, but from mastering one's own mind. Marcus Aurelius wisely stated, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. This means that while we cannot control everything that happens to us, we always have the ability to control our thoughts, attitudes, and responses. This realization is incredibly freeing. It shifts the focus from blaming others or circumstances to taking responsibility for our own actions and mindset. Many people go through life unaware of how their own behavior holds them back. They blame external factors for their problems, resist change out of fear, or let pride keep them from learning and improving. Without self-awareness, they continue repeating the same mistakes, wondering why they feel stuck, unfulfilled, or frustrated. However, the moment we recognize these patterns, we gain the ability to break free from them. We can consciously choose to listen more, embrace challenges, take responsibility, and seek wisdom instead of clinging to ignorance. This awareness is also essential when evaluating the people around us. While we should not judge others harshly, it is important to recognize when certain individuals exhibit consistently foolish behaviors that may negatively impact our own growth. Surrounding ourselves with people who value wisdom, self-improvement, and accountability helps us cultivate those traits within ourselves. Conversely, staying too close to those who refuse to learn or grow can hold us back. Recognizing these traits allows us to make better choices about who we spend our time with and where we invest our energy. Ultimately, wisdom is not an innate trait, it is a lifelong pursuit. Everyone has moments of foolishness, but the key difference between a fool and a wise person is the willingness to acknowledge flaws and strive for improvement. By developing self-awareness, we take control of our own lives and move toward becoming the best versions of ourselves. If this message resonates with you, please like, share, and subscribe for more content that will help you create the life you truly deserve. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.